Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery,
And I am Milton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Man.
and today we're going to be talking to you about relationships, specifically toxic, abusive relationships, and we're going to be mentioning one case in particular, the ongoing Johnny Depp case against his former partner, Amber Heard. Now, before we go into the events of the matter, Dalton, what do you know about toxic relationships or abusive relationships?
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to cover this is because there seems to be a default assumption that in all domestic violence cases, the woman is always the victim and never the perpetrator or the primary instigator. That being said, most actual cases of domestic violence are in some way mutual. Um, but that disclaimer out of the way, it does seem primarily like in the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which is a case that's high profile enough that I wanted to cover it. And also, I think we got sidetracked on it once in a previous episode. Um, but it does seem like Amber Heard is actually the primary instigator in that particular relationship because from what we have of the evidence, it seems like her main problem with him is that he's not the alpha Chad dickhead that she was hoping to get with, which tells you quite a bit, I think, about Amber Heard's relationship preferences. If she was looking for basically Jack Sparrow, and then when Johnny Depp, the relatively introverted nerdy guy, showed up, she got so pissed off that she actually started hitting him.
I mean, you think that the relationship wouldn't even get that far. I mean, they've been together for years now, and you think that once she figured out his true personality, if that wasn't something she was interested in, the relationship would just run its course.
I
But
I don't want to speculate about her motives, but it very much seems like one of the reasons she started abusing him was to hopefully instigate and break him so that he did start combating her like an alpha dickhead.
well, I think that's one thing about toxic relationships is that they do run on longer than should naturally occur.
Yeah,
Like two people
it,
who are
it's it,
wrong
it's
for each
like
other.
it's like any other addiction. I think it's mostly just you don't have much in most toxic relationships. I think it's along the lines of you don't have much regard for the actual person in the relationship. You just view them as a means to whatever end you need to get off, essentially.
I think I think that most relationships, once they hit their natural endpoint, they just end. The people realize that it's not going to work and just cut their losses. But
Yeah, in a healthy relationship, that's supposed to be how it works. But unfortunately, with people with various toxic personality types and personality disorders, it seems like there's an aversion to ever wanting to admit that you were wrong, and a relationship ending is in some way an admittal or an admission that you were wrong to engage in the relationship in the first place. And so again, primary uh the primary factor of a toxic relationship seems to be um the same as any other authoritarian tendency, which is I want the world to behave in exactly the way I want it, and if it refuses, I'm just going to nail the world into place until it can only be what I want it to be.
see, the way I see toxic relationships is that they are parasitic. The toxic person sees something that they want or need in the other person, and they latch onto them and don't let them go, and just continue to drain whatever it is that they want
Yeah.
from that person.
And it's even easier when both parties are somehow toxic, which again, even though we're talking about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, which is a case where it seems like she is the primary instigator and he is the primary victim, most of the time in toxic relationships, there's a mutualistic element of the relationship whereby both parties are abusive. I, however, need to go deal with my cat because I think she's going to continue meowing until I actually do something with her. So I'll be back in a second.
Okay. Hey everyone. Now, personally, I have not been in a toxic relationship myself. Um, all of my relationships, when they hit their natural endpoint, we basically just went our separate ways. Some of these breakups were amicable, some were not, but I wouldn't describe any of them as toxic. Now, I have known people who were in toxic relationships, and as much as I tried to be there for my friend, it's very difficult from an outside perspective to talk to somebody about their relationship that's toxic because they may not realize it, or they may just be in denial about it, or they may believe that things will get better, but it, things aren't going to get better if you don't confront the problem. Oh, hey, man, I was just giving
Filling the
some
dead
thoughts
air. Yeah,
about.
I heard.
So, do you want to get into the Johnny Depp case?
Um, yeah, sure. Although I wanted to before we get into that mention something that we had mentioned before, which is um because of the nature of relationships and intimacy, if you don't feel comfortable sharing your deepest, darkest, most intimate secrets with somebody, then you should not be in a relationship with that person. To tie it back to the old colloquialism, do not stick it in crazy. Yeah. But yeah, let's get into the actual fundamentals of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case.
All right, it says that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard struck up a relationship after meeting her on the set of 2009's The Rum Diary. It said that she was actually in a relationship with a photographer and painter, Tazia Van for 4 years from 2008 to 2012. So when she started getting involved with Johnny Depp, she was also seeing some other guy, and that relationship carried on for 3 more years, actually.
And in the immortal words of Adam Savage, well, there's your problem. As I think it was you last time we talked about relationships and divorce. Um, as you said, if she's willing to cheat on another guy with you, then she's willing to cheat on you with another guy at some point. So yeah,
Uh,
that was red flag number one that Johnny should have noticed and didn't for some reason.
I have
And
red flag number two coming right at you.
oh Lord.
Uh, Heard told Vogue in 2011, working with Johnny was torture. It was better than I ever imagined, which is really saying something.
Like I know sarcasm is a thing, and some people do like their relationships to be a little bit rough, and what you do in the privacy of your own bedroom in regards to like dom submissive stuff or top bottom stuff, entirely up to you. And I get it. Like I say, I'm a gay bottom, so I know what it's like to want a dominant partner.
I don't
But
think this has to do with sexual relationship. I think this has to do with I think she meant emotional torture,
well, but
which for some reason
in
she
either
enjoyed.
case, the fact that she defines something as torture and then apparently is turned on by it, kind of again, like you said, red flag number two. She clearly wants an asshole partner, and it seems like she wants somebody who's going to basically treat her like Bluto treats Olive Oil or like Gaston treats Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Um, which side note, my biggest complaint with this is you're in Hollywood. If you want the alpha Chad Dick action star that's going to treat you like Bluto or Gaston, there's no shortage of those. So why be with the nonchalant, introverted, geeky guy Johnny Depp when I don't know, like I don't want to say Arnold, but whoever the like action guy du jour happens to be, like Tom Cruise or somebody. Why get with the class nerd when there's a table full of jocks willing to be as abrasive and dismissive of you as you apparently want it?
I mean,
Why
or
why
just
make
data jump.
Johnny? Why try to turn Johnny into the Alpha Chad Dick when you're in Hollywood and there's just no shortage of Alpha Chad Dicks to go around,
Yeah, I
my
don't
friend.
understand why she wouldn't just data jump them. There are multiple league of athletes that she could pick from that I'm pretty sure would be closer to what she's looking
Yeah,
for.
action stars, athletes, heartthrobs, like some combination of all of the above. Like this isn't in a normal circumstance, I can understand it because if you're not a famous person and you're not considered that attractive, you're not going to be a 5 and score a 10. It's just not likely to happen. But she is a very beautiful actress in the middle of freaking Hollywood, where all of the alphas and the Chads and the Stacys, for lack of a better term, go or end up. So if you have all of Hollywood to choose from, why did you get into it with the introverted geeky guy sitting over on the table by himself when you could have walked up to, again, like a Tom Cruise or The Rock or somebody like that? And no, I'm not saying that those guys are abusive. I'm just saying they fit more the type of guy that she apparently is looking for, instead of trying to take the geeky hipster guy Johnny Depp and turn him into a Bluto or a Gaston type.
All right. I have red flag number three.
Oh God.
It says Johnny Depp split up with his then partner Paradis in late 2000. Sorry, yeah, late 2011, early 2012. Heard
So
split
they
up with
were
her partner Tasha Von Ree at the same time. USA Today reported that Heard was arrested in 2009 on a charge of physically assaulting then girlfriend Von Ree at Seattle Tacoma International Airport in Washington. The two got into a disagreement after Heard allegedly grabbed and hit Von Ree's arm. All charges were dropped. However, Von Ree herself said that Heard was wrongfully accused by the cops who misinterpreted and over sensationalized the incident. So I just want to say that people in relationships that are toxic often deny the abuse is happening.
well, there's that, but there's also the fact of not to be that guy, but in here in the real world where real people function and do things, normally it's so hard to convince people that men are being abused that if a man calls the cops on his abusive wife or abusive girlfriend, like 8 times out of 10, they will beat the fuck out of him under the assumption that he is the abuser. And there are many, many, many cases of this that have made national headlines. So I don't even want to hear it about the cherry picking thing. Normally, you basically have to castrate a guy with a butter knife or something to even qualify it as abuse when you're a woman. So the fact that the cops were even willing to consider that she was the abusive party says a lot to me about the severity of what the abuse must have been like.
No,
Um,
they were both women.
well, but again, they were both in a relationship. Both Johnny and Amber were apparently in a relationship with one another,
Yeah.
or whilst they were both in other relationships that were apparently fraught with dangers or conflicts or abuse. And so I'm left wondering again, why would either of them think that this was a good idea? Like I understand the notion of love is blind and everything, but there comes a point where it's not just being blind, it's straight up ignoring all the world around you.
See, says they got married in 2015. Says that in 2016, on May 23rd, 2016, my birthday, by the way, Heard filed for divorce from Depp and also obtained a temporary restraining order against the Oscar nominated actor. She alleged that Depp had physically abused her during their relationship and that it was usually while under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
Okay, I can believe that Johnny Depp is the sort of hipster dude who tries drugs a lot, but at least as far as the evidence is concerned, the evidence that we have suggests Johnny Depp refusing to abuse her actively and her getting pissed off about it. Like that there is an audio recording of of
Yes,
them whilst she is on an abusive tirade, and most of her complaints about him were not you abuse me when you're on drugs or when you're high or something. Most of the complaints were you're such a weak little bitch that you don't abuse me and that pisses me off, so I'm going to hit you. And then if you whine at me, if you bitch at me for hitting you, then you're just a wuss, basically, was the long and the short of it.
yeah. Also, it doesn't appear that Johnny Depp has history of being abusive in his past relationships. And as somebody who drinks quite a bit, you don't even when you're drunk, you don't just start haul off and hitting women if you're not the type of person that hits women. That just you don't just do that
Hmm.
out of nowhere, even when you're drunk.
Yeah, and I've known enough people that experimented with pot and various other drugs to know that it doesn't usually change your entire personality. If you're the type of person who would engage in that sort of abusive behavior while drunk or high, you're at least going to be passive aggressive whilst you're sober. And again, not saying that it never happened and not saying it never occurred, but the evidence that we have is evidence to the contrary, or at least in contravention of that narrative.
She alleged that at the time of filing for divorce, an incident had recently taken place in which Depp threw his phone at her, leaving her with a bruised face. However, a police spokesman told people that an investigation into the domestic incident radio call found that no crime had taken place. So, according to the police, her accusations were false.
Uh-huh. And again, it is worth noting that the kind of abuse that men and women engage in diverges based along gender lines. Which is to say that men's abuse normally takes the form of direct aggression, like physically hitting and so on. Women's abuse usually takes an emotional and histrionic form of either um, being emotionally hysterical in the hopes of manipulating someone or being emotionally hysterical in the form of feigning victimhood. And bearing in mind that that is the case, and bearing in mind that these incidents have been investigated for the most part when they've happened, I'm siding with the evidence and saying that it is entirely likely and possible that Amber Heard is a histrionic bitch who, when she is faced with the consequences of her own actions, feigns victimhood to try and get out of it because the woman card compels you, basically.
Depp denied these accusations and, through his representatives, said Heard was attempting to secure a premature financial resolution by alleging abuse. Basically, they were getting divorced, and she basically used this as a tactic in order to secure a favorable divorce settlement, which is
Yeah,
not
and
surprising at all.
yeah, and it is. I just want to point this out there. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard are both professional actors and therefore are perfectly capable of lying their asses off. But that being said, the evidence suggests that Johnny Depp is the aggrieved party in this case, and suggests that and suggests that it is entirely likely that the series of events that he alleges is likely to have happened. Also, that is a very, very specific and precise accusation to be making if he was just making it up off the top of his head. And again, professional actor, and I'm not saying he's never taken an improv course or something, but usually when someone lies to get out of something like that, it's something that you come up with in the spur of the moment to get out of shit. That is a little bit too specific and too plausible to just be made up out of whole cloth, in my opinion. Especially given her other accusations later on, and again the audio section that we do have evidence of. And again, not saying that it was never mutual, but it appears by all evidence and by even the admission of both parties that she is the primary instigator and that he, if he ever abused her at all, probably did it to get away from her so that he could no longer be abused by her.
Yeah, I mean, this next part has me thinking that the whole thing was just made up whole cloth. Heard testified under oath at a deposition, but a settlement was eventually reached after she withdrew her request for a domestic violence restraining order. She also rescinded her spousal support request of $50,000 a month. Depp and Heard also released a joint statement saying, "Our relationship was intensely passionate and at times volatile, but always bound by love. Neither party has made false accusations for financial gain." So it sounds like she withdrew everything, and then they both just tried to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, which, if she was genuinely aggrieved by something like that, I can't imagine her, especially given how volatile her personality seems to be, again, looking at the available evidence. If she was genuinely being abused and she had him over a barrel for abuse accusations, I can't imagine her ever um taking taking the nukes down, as it were, like disarming the nukes. Um, the fact that she was willing to basically disarm every accusation that she made suggests to me that either she was lying the entire time, or it was something that could have been resolved in the space of an argument, like a conversation, and he came apologizing to her, and she swooned and she changed her mind. Which, again, if these accusations were that serious, and given her personality, I can't imagine she would change her mind that easily. Not saying it never happens, because abusive people do have a tendency of being able to manipulate the fuck out of people. And so you can often be gaslit and think to yourself, well, I guess it wasn't really that bad, but being that as it may, I find one set of circumstances more plausible than the other in this case.
It said that she received $7 million from the divorce, but donated it to charity, according to People magazine.
Now, see, this is what you call first world problems, or in this case, I think the problems of the 1%. If you can just nonchalantly blink $7 million away to charity, then you are not hurting financially, my darling. Not to mention the fact that you are an actress and you've gotten work throughout this entire process. Unlike the other party in this relationship, who basically is the devil according to the media, despite contravention of the available evidence.
Uh, Said the divorce was finalized in 2017. She got to keep their dogs. Meanwhile, Depp retained sole possession of all properties, including his private island in the Bahamas, as well as his collection of classic cars and motorcycles. So she got off with very little from this divorce. I think further cementing that the accusations were bullshit.
Especially given that one of these parties was a man and the other party was a woman. Because normally, in such circumstances, even when the divorce is fairly amicable, if the woman feels like it, the woman can put him over a barrel. Which suggests to me that either she didn't feel like it, which I find unlikely given the kind of person we found that she is, or she lied her ass off and he managed to be the sympathetic one when it came time for the court hearings, and the judge was like, "You are being an evil cunt," so he gets all of his shit.
Yeah, I mean, when does a guy ever get to keep all his stuff in a divorce? Damn near never.
Yeah, like, show me things that never happened for 800, Mr. Trebek. No, that's so either Johnny Depp is very, very, very good at negotiations in a way that no man on earth has ever been, or she is a lying bitch and the judge found her to be unsympathetic and therefore awarded a bunch of shit to Johnny in order to punish her for being an evil bitch.
Uh, According to the Hollywood Reporter, a non disparagement clause was inserted into the settlement that prevented either party from saying anything negative of the high profile relationship and breakup.
Well, look at that! Look at that! A clause that should have prevented this entire rigmarole, and yet Amber Heard lied her ass off again post divorce and basically all but ruined Johnny's career. Hmm.
She then goes on to break this agreement like a year later.
Yeah.
Heard
Yeah.
wrote an op ed for the Washington Post in which she spoke about the treatment of women in domestic abuse cases. In the op ed, Heard wrote, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. Oh, for the love of God.
Again, I would like to take things that never happened in existence for 800, Mr. Trebek, because that is like, okay, again, I'm trying to be intellectually charitable because we don't have all of the available evidence and this isn't a settled matter. So it is possible that she is just that unself-aware and that Johnny Depp is some kind of master Machiavellian manipulator par excellence in a way that would make freaking Stalin ashamed of his manipulation skills. But given the available evidence and the personalities of the people involved, I find this extremely, extremely histrionic and attention seeking in a way that only a female person would get away with, and therefore this entire "oh, the world is so hard on women who allege domestic abuse," to which my response is, have you ever, apart from this one case, this one singular case, ever seen a situation where men even get to allege domestic abuse and get taken seriously? Because again, the statistics show like 8 times out of 10 when an abused man calls the cops on his abusive partner, it is him who winds up getting accused of abuse and usually beaten the fuck out of and locked in prison for a depending on the severity of the accusation. Um,
Yeah, and that is standard police procedure. Whenever they go to a domestic abuse call, their first thought is that it's always the man. And I remember reading about this, but I forget the details. We could do a separate episode about how laws are arrayed against men, or we could mention that. But let's get back to
yeah,
the case.
getting back to this thing.
It says
Yeah,
Depp himself
the
was
thing
never
is,
mentioned by name.
yeah, the thing is, Hollywood may be a very weird and very counterintuitive place relative to the rest of us normal people, but either the Hollywood legal system is the complete inverse of everywhere else on Earth, or Amber Heard is a lying histrionic bitch.
I think
Like
both of
those are
those things
the
can be
only two
true.
plausible circumstances in this case.
I think both of those things can be a little bit true.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Hollywood isn't completely ass backwards most of the time, but in this particular case, in something so severe, um, and something so commonplace among the rest of the world, Of all the things that I expect to be completely ass backwards in Hollywood, this ain't it. Especially with all of the social justice initiatives in Hollywood today. Because that's the other thing. Not only is this in contravention to the rest of the world, basically, but it's also in contravention to the proposed morality of Hollywood in this current day and age. Given that so many of them donate millions to social justice causes, and
Yeah.
every single movie they make nowadays is lousy with the woman is always the victim, the man is always the perpetrator narrative.
Interesting that she tried this, it failed in the courts, and then right after the hashtag Me Too starts, she tries it again.
It eviscerates him in the court of public opinion because she can't do it in the court of actual appeals. Yes,
His Depp himself was never mentioned by name, which is probably how she skirted around that legal
the
agreement with
defamation
herself.
suit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this person did this, but everyone knows that we went through a messy divorce, and so clearly that's what I'm talking about. And
In 2019,
if she didn't mean him, then she probably should have spoken up when everyone accused him of shit, and he lost a bunch of jobs as a result of this accusation.
in 2019, Depp sued her for 50 million for defamation over the Washington Post article. The suit said that Heard is not a victim of domestic abuse, she is a perpetrator, and denied that Depp ever abused her. Instead, the suit said that Heard's allegations were part of an elaborate hoax to generate positive publicity for the actors. That I can absolutely believe.
Yeah,
Depp's
and
lawyer said the
again, it's not that I dispute that he was ever uncouth to her or whatever, but of the two of the two voices in this discussion, one of them is saying histrionic, counterintuitive things that make no fucking sense, and one of them is saying entirely plausible circumstances that make all the sense in the world. So who am I left to believe?
Depp's lawyers said the op-ed depended on the central premise that Miss Heard was a domestic abuse victim and that Mr. Depp perpetrated domestic abuse violence against her. In a court filing that attempted to dismiss Depp's defamation suit, Heard detailed multiple instances of alleged abuse that she said occurred during their marriage and referred to him as the monster.
Johnny hipster to the point of almost nonchalance. Depp is a monster. Says the woman who literally threw a frying pan at the dude. Yeah, I'm again not saying it never happened, but I am saying that the available evidence that we have is evidence to the contrary, and one of these people is saying incredibly reasonable things, and the other one is saying histrionic, moralistic woo. So I'm gonna have to see a lot of evidence to this. And also something worth noting, just because this is the one time it happened, just because this is the one time a case like this happened in Hollywood among the among our betters, quote unquote, among the aristocracy, doesn't mean that these kind of situations don't happen. And I think it's worth noting that in the real world, where the people in question aren't rich and famous and powerful and well known and all that shit, what do you think happens when a woman abuses a man and he points out that he's being abused? Does he get taken seriously, like Johnny is fortunately mostly in this case because people know who Johnny Depp is? Or is he accused that his accusations of abuse are just meant to dodge the fact that he's abusing her, and then the book is thrown at him even harder? Again, not saying it never happens, but which of these is the more plausible circumstance?
Says Heard claimed that she still had scars on her arms and feet from an incident where Depp allegedly threw her through a ping pong table and dragged her through broken glass. Now, a ping pong table, that's so specific that I highly doubt it. And as far as the broken glass goes, as somebody who has fallen through glass and actually stepped on broken glass, it doesn't cut as well as people actually think it does.
Yeah, it just hurts like a motherfucker. Um, if at all.
Like
But
dragging you through broken glass, I actually doubt that that would give enough force to break the skin, let alone leave scars.
mhm. And again, in the recording that we actually have, in which both parties knew they were being recorded, one of the things that she accused him of was not hitting her and was whining when she hit him. And we know for a fact that she threw like pots and pans at the guy. Whereas the one time where she was hurt on that recording by way of trying to bash in a locked door that Johnny had closed to get the fuck away from her, he still, even
The
though
recording is up next.
even though she was able to avoid um, getting hurt for the most part, he still um, feigned sympathy for her at least. So again, it's not that it didn't happen, but which of these seems the more plausible?
No, and there have been reports of women who have hit themselves or cut themselves in order to give themselves bruises or scars to make it look like their partners were abusing them. That's been known to
Yeah.
happen.
I know of one case where a woman literally carved a fish symbol and a cross into her skin to accuse fundamentalist Christians of abusing her.
Well, see, this is why you got to watch our first episode, fellas, so you don't date these kinds of women.
Yes, again, if there was ever a perfect example of do not stick your dick in crazy, this is like the apotheosis of the example here. Also, just worth noting, don't cheat with someone who is also in a relationship while you yourself are in a relationship that is likely to go completely and utterly up your ass by the end of it. And
All right,
if you
now on
don't
to
have the
the
millions of dollars necessary to survive a suit like this, then imagine imagine what this would do to someone with a normal bank account. Because Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, while I do have sympathy for Johnny Depp in this case, because it does appear like he's going through a ridiculous amount of abuse, they can throw millions of dollars around back and forth to and fro all the live long day to the point of she can just give away $7 million to charity, even though that was the settlement that she got from a divorce. But normal people who have like limited bank accounts and such don't have millions of dollars to just throw around at random. So keep this in mind before you find yourself sticking it or getting stuck by crazy.
now we've reached the point of the infamous tape recording.
Uh,
In January, phone recordings obtained by the Daily Mail were released. In these recordings, Heard admitted to hitting Depp. Heard is saying, "I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you." Meanwhile, Depp said in the recording, "I left last night. Honestly, I swear to you, because I just couldn't take the idea of more physicality, more physical abuse on each other. Because we had continued it, it would have gotten effing bad. And baby, I told you this once. I'm scared to death. We are a effing crime scene right now," Depp continued. Heard replied,
okay, and again, I'm struck by the notion that she is still, even while submitting to hitting him, making excuses as to how her abuse is not that bad, which is, to say nothing else, a very common thing among female abusers. The old adage of, well, women are so much physically weaker than men. How could we possibly ever hurt them? As they're sitting there with a knife about to stab them or something. Like like, if this were the Stone Age, you might have a freaking point, but it's not the Stone Age anymore. We live in a world where there are weapons and there are legal systems. The easiest way for a woman to abuse a man is just to call the cops on him and let them assume all the things they're practically obligated to assume by their own statutes and legal codes. Again, case in point, all of the various cases of abused man calls the cops on his abusive wife or girlfriend, and they beat the fuck out of him, assuming that he is the abuser, before they've even gotten a chance to interview either party.
There's more to it.
Oh god.
Heard replied, I can't promise you I won't get physical again. God, I effing sometimes get so mad I lose it. So
Okay.
that's her
Just
admitting that she's probably going to hit him again and that she gets really bad and loses control.
yes, and again, worth noting here, if a man said anything along those lines, especially in the form of trying to excuse abuse, he would be in freaking jail before he'd even finished the sentence. Like, before the words left his back teeth, he would be in jail. She can straight up admit, I hit you, and I'm likely to do it again, and I do it because I get so freaking mad and I can't control my anger. And she gets off scot-free and is perfectly endowed with a still thriving acting career. Meanwhile, Johnny excuses himself from the household because he doesn't want it to escalate again, and he lost basically every high-profile example of his career.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
you could
I,
see
I
in that
don't
recording.
want to cry misanthropy, but where else is my brain supposed to go when the facts are those?
You could see in that recording Johnny Depp is actively trying to de-escalate the situation by removing himself, and Amber Heard is just saying, "Yeah, I hit you, and I'm probably going to do it again. And you know what?
And
I
also
just
making
can't control
excuses for
myself
why her
sometimes."
hitting wasn't so bad because she's a woman and she can't hurt him. Never mind the psychological impact of your partner, the person you're saying you love, is trying to physically hit you, regardless of how effective they are at it, and repeatedly does so. Not to mention the fact that she, at one point, reached for a freaking frying pan and literally tried to go Looney Tunes on his ass while he was in the bathroom, locked in there so he didn't so he could avoid the situation entirely. And he still, when she came and tried to kick the door down, feigned caring about her. So, yeah.
All right. So in July 2020, the actual trial for Johnny Depp's lawsuit began. Depp fought newspapers, the publisher of The Sun, in court over a 2018 article in which they called him a wife beater in reference to Depp and Heard's former marriage. Depp sued both publisher and The Sun's executive editor, Dan Wooten, for libel. Uh, Winona Ryder and Paradis, who were both in a relationship with Johnny Depp previously, both provided statements in Depp's defense. Ryder wrote, the idea that he's an incredibly violent person is the farthest thing from the Johnny I knew and loved. I cannot wrap my head around these accusations. Meanwhile, Paradis wrote that Heard's accusations are nothing like the true Johnny I have known, and from my personal experience of many years, I can say he was never violent or abusive to me. So, two women that he was in a relationship with both came to his defense saying that what he's being accused of is nothing like what he actually is.
And mind you, these are his exes. So if they wanted to really do a number on his reputation and his career, if they were still salty about being his exes or salty about how the relationship ended, they could have easily lied their asses off and
Yeah,
they would have and nobody would have been any the wiser. But they still felt compelled to be honest about it.
I
So
mean, and one of the women was the woman that Johnny Depp was dating while he started dating Amber Heard and left
yeah,
her for
the woman
her.
she cheated on with him,
Yeah.
and yet
So if
still.
anybody had an axe to grind, it would have been her, and she still came to his defense.
Yeah, so not only is it unlikely to be the case just because of Johnny Depp's public persona, but if the opinions of these women, who again are his exes and quite explosively his exes at that, if their opinions are at all to be believed, then his public persona of this introverted, shy guy is pretty accurate, and Amber Heard is an abusive bitch. Which
Uh,
again is concordant with all of the evidence and all of her own admissions. So yeah,
Depp alleged that Heard defecated in his bed and punched him, which Heard denies. Depp also accused Heard of having extramarital affairs with James Franco and Elon Musk, which Heard also denies. Meanwhile, Heard accused Depp of physically abusing her and also accused him of throwing a phone at her face, which she says left her bruised. That's the same accusation that was thrown out of court during their divorce.
yeah. The people in charge of investigating such things already investigated it and concluded that no incident like that took place, or if it did, it's taken out of context extremely because it doesn't fit with the available evidence.
See,
And meanwhile, we literally have um, audio evidence of her picking up a frying pan and trying to come at him with it. So again, not saying they're never mutually combative or anything, but of the two parties, and trying to take my own biases out of it for a second, but of the two parties, even trying to look at this with objective eyes, Johnny is the sympathetic one. As sympathetic as a multimillionaire actor can be, pretty much.
but he seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, if nothing else, this fiasco showed me that if I ever wanted to meet a famous actor and I wanted to like have a drink with them or something, I'm picking Johnny Depp because not only is he actually one of my favorite actors and starred in I think my personal all-time favorite like cinematic comfort food movie, The Ninth Gate, um, but his public persona has always been so like nonchalant and nerdy and introverted, and it makes me think we would get along. And again,
I think he's
his
really good to fans too.
yeah, his exes, one of whom has a personal or should have a personal axe to grind with him, said that public persona is not a lie, that he actually is that nice. So yeah, I'm if ever I get the opportunity to show with an actor, I'm picking Johnny Depp. Not only because of all the other things, but also because he was in my favorite movie of all time, and I want him to sign it at some point. To be honest with you. Anyway, moving on.
All right, so 3 months after the trial started, the judge, uh, Mr. Justice Nicole, ruled that the Sun was correct in reporting that Depp was violent towards his ex-wife Amber Heard. Now, I just want to make one thing clear: this is a civil case, not a criminal case. So, in the criminal case that was investigated when Amber Heard first made accusations against Johnny Depp, the police investigated it and said nothing happened. But
Yeah,
in this civil case,
the accusations that you're accusing did not take place here.
yeah, in this civil case, the accusations were able to stick, and I think it's because in the civil case, there's no one from the law actually investigating it. It's
Yeah,
just two
and
sides arguing their cases.
the standard of evidence is much lower, and um, court bias or judge bias are a lot easier to excuse. Which, and I don't, and again, we don't have all of the available evidence, so I'm leaving myself some plausible deniability here. But given everything that we just went over there, I find it highly likely that the judge declared her as the victim because he's a good little social justice advocate, and that's the approved moral framework to operate within. And until I see some hard evidence to the contrary, that's the theory I'm going with. He wanted to be the good little white knight, and so he had to come to her rescue because reasons.
Yes, just following the ruling, a spokesman for the Sun said the Sun has stood up for and campaigned for the victims of domestic abuse for over 20 years. Domestic abuse victims must never be silenced, and we thank the judge for his careful consideration and thank Amber Heard for her courage in giving evidence to the court. The
Okay, well,
absolute bullshit
okay, well,
hypocrisy of that statement.
yeah, okay, Mr. Editor of the Sun. And I know this is going to fuck with your head here, but men can be victims of domestic violence. And in this particular case, all of the available evidence, outside of your instincts going, ook, 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 the woman, derp, outside of the like instinctive gynocentrism of the human psychology, it would appear that he is actually the victim of her. And so by accusing him of being a wife beater, you have done nothing but not only silence a victim of domestic violence, but also, and I know you'll know this because you appear to be this baked into social justice ideology, but there's a term in social justice ideology called victim blaming. And yeah, you done went and blamed the fucking victim. You
It, there's literally a recording of her saying that she was hitting him. Like, I
and
can't think of better evidence than an actual video of her in the act, but that's pretty damning.
yeah, and again, we see in that recording that at one point she literally goes for a fucking frying pan and tries to, Muriel from Courage the Cowardly Dog upside his head, basically. Or do we have to go to the part of the audio where she literally tries to break down the bathroom door that he locked specifically to get away from her and de-escalate the situation? She hurt her toes, and he still, from inside the locked bathroom where he's trying to avoid getting abused by her, feigned some kind of sympathy for her. And it's worth noting that they both knew that that recording existed because they got that recording because they went to freaking um couples counseling, and that was the suggestion made by the um counselor, and he reminded her that it was there at the start of the recording. So even if she had momentarily forgotten that that recording was there, and even if they both are professional actors capable of lying their asses off, you're gonna have to explain to me why, if they're both lying their asses off on that recording, he was able to successfully convey a calm demeanor, and she still remained abusive. So either she's more abusive to him off camera, or she for some reason forgot that she's a professional actress and can at least feign a sympathetic point of view.
Right? You're forgetting, Dalton, this was the Me Too era, or as I like to call it, the American Inquisition.
Yeah, you could almost call it the femme scare at this point instead of red scare.
It says Johnny Depp has strenuously denied all claims that he was violent towards Heard, and in a statement published shortly after the ruling, his lawyer said, "This decision is as perverse as it is bewildering." Kind of have to agree on that.
Yeah, again, it's not that I'm so biased against Amber Heard that I can't see a circle she's possibly the victim. But I keep looking at the available evidence and the available logic and the available statements made by both parties, and every single piece of solid evidence suggests that she abused him specifically because he wasn't abusive to her, and she wanted some kind of alpha Chad dickhead, and he did everything he possibly could to remain his introverted self and de-escalate the situation, and that did nothing but piss her off even worse.
It says Most troubling is the judge's reliance on the
Psyops campaign.
testimony of Amber Heard and corresponding disregard of the mountain of counter evidence from police officers, medical practitioners, her own former assistant, other unchallenged witnesses, and an array of documentary evidence which completely undermine the allegations point by point. So
Yeah,
basically,
so I
believe women.
yeah, either this is the most elaborate psyop in the history of humanity, or Amber Heard is a histrionic lying cunt, and Johnny Depp is one of the most obvious victims of domestic violence in the history of mankind.
I mean, either Johnny Depp's got, you know, counterintelligence on par with the CIA, or or the women is lying.
She's either the most incompetent victim in the history of domestic violence, or he is some kind of like Hannibal Lecterian mastermind or something. Or if we're allowed to actually look at the evidence and take the evidence into account, what appears to have happened is she got turned on to him because he found she found him difficult, expected him to act like one of his more machismo laden characters like Jack Sparrow. She found that he wasn't like that in real life, got pissed off, tried to abuse him to force him to be violent to her, failed miserably because he just isn't that violent and is genuinely a decent guy deep down, and then went to histrionically play the victim so that the court of public opinion would side with her when it became obvious to her that she wasn't going to get any good things out of him. That appears to be the long and the short of the evidence. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to believing the opposite happened, but going by the evidence and the available logic, I'm gonna need to see a hell of a ton of counter evidence to balance the shit I've already seen.
All of this was overlooked. This is the lawyer speaking again. The judgment is so flawed that it would be ridiculous for Mr. Depp not to appeal this decision. In the meantime, we hope that, in contrast to this case, the ongoing libel proceedings in America are equitable, with both parties providing full disclosure rather than one side strategically cherry picking what evidence can and cannot be relied upon. Depp also launched a $50 million case against her in the U.S. over a column she penned in the Washington Post, like we said, about her experience as a victim of domestic violence. While Depp is not named in Heard's piece, his legal team insists that it is strongly inferred that the article is about him. I mean, we know it's about him. Who else would it be about?
Yeah, it literally strains credulity for it to be about anyone else. Especially given that every time he comes after her for lying her ass off about him, she either folds or makes up another series of lies that implicate him in some kind of abuse. If she genuinely was talking about somebody else, all she would have had to have said when he came to point out, you know, it it sounds very much like you're talking about me and I didn't do that shit. All she would have had to have said is, I apologize for making Mr. Depp look like an abuser. I was talking about somebody else. And all of this could have gone away. But she didn't, and every time he tries to challenge her on it, she doubles down. So we we are either again meant to believe that she is that stupid, or that she is that histrionic. And the more I hear of this case, the more I'm clumping for option two there.
All right. In a statement posted to his Instagram on November 6th, 4 days later after the conclusion to his libel case, he wrote in a typed letter, I wish to let you know that I have been asked to resign by Warner Brothers from my role as Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts, and I've respected and agreed to that request. I won't be watching that movie.
Now, okay, this is a completely separate issue, but I just want to point this out for the sake of mostly just fanboy bullshit. But I personally think that he was miscast as Grindelwald. I don't think he was the right person to play Grindelwald. And I believe that since this happened, Mads Mikkelsen has taken over the role as Grindelwald, which personally I find to be a better fit for the character. But that has nothing to do with the strength or otherwise of the accusations. I just think that if we're looking at this from a I want to see good movies and accurate portrayals of things that I care about in fan culture shit perspective, um, I think that Johnny Depp was probably miscast as Grindelwald to begin with, and that Mads Mikkelsen is probably a better fit for the character. But that has absolutely bumfuck nothing to do with the accusations. And if we're going from the accusations, then yes, he shouldn't have been dismissed. What should have happened is they should have realized that he was miscast for the role to begin with, and then not casted him. But um, as far as this is concerned, if they were intending to go with Johnny Depp, they should have stuck with Johnny Depp, or just not weighed in on this at all. Especially when you consider that at no point in this entire debacle has Amber Heard's career come under fire at all, which is the fundamental issue I have with this. Because, like I say, or like I've said throughout this episode, I am willing to believe that there is some other alternative explanation for this shit. I am willing to believe that we don't have all the evidence, and I am willing to remain agnostic or neutral about this until we have more of the available evidence. But the powers that be in Hollywood have not even attempted to remain neutral and just not weigh in on the case at all. They have fully and completely sided with Amber Heard's victimhood narrative in
Yeah, and that's the
opposition to
thing. Like,
yeah.
I know we don't have all the evidence, and I know that there's still a lot to be decided in the courts, but from the evidence that we do have available to us, the most solid evidence is in favor of Johnny Depp.
Yeah, so either follow the evidence and punish Amber Heard for this nonsense while keeping Johnny Depp where he should be, or just remain entirely neutral and just wait until the proceedings are dealt with and don't punish either of them. But Hollywood and the powers that be in Hollywood have done neither of these reasonable courses of action. Because reasonable course of action number one is go with the available evidence and side with Johnny Depp. Reasonable course of action number two is save face and remain entirely neutral throughout the entire proceedings. But they went with option three, side with Amber Heard because she is woman and woman must be victim because gynocentrism there.
All right. Johnny Depp continues. Finally, I wish to say this. The surreal judgment of the court in the UK will not change my fight to tell the truth, and I confirm that I plan to appeal. My resolve remains strong, and I intend to prove that the allegations against me are false. My life and career will not be defined by this moment in time.
Again, all this has done is show me just how base Johnny Depp is. And it's making him infinitely more sympathetic than he otherwise would be.
I want to note something interesting here is that Johnny Depp is always on the defensive in these. He's never going on the attack, um, saying that Heard is abusive. I mean, he does say that, but it's always in defense that he is not the one who is abusing
Yeah,
her, and it's
it's
because of allegations that other people have brought up against him.
yeah, it's you're accusing me of being an abuser, and by the way, I've been abused. Which again shows just how much of a class act Johnny Depp is, and it's not even a vindictive I was abused, it's just a matter of fact I was abused. Because in all the cases where he could have pressed her to show how abusive she was, he didn't. Even in the recording that we have of their private exchange, when she injures herself by trying to break down the bathroom door in which he was locked to get away from her, he feigned sympathy for her accidentally hurting herself and asked, like, "Are you okay?" and stuff like that. That is not the actions of someone who wants to be vindictive and make himself out to be the victim. You know what is the actions of someone trying to be vindictive and making themselves out to be the victim? Doubling down on victimhood every time the topic is brought up, in defiance of a non-defamation clause in a divorce contract. Which, side note, if I were Johnny Depp, and please, Johnny, if you ever see this, take this advice as a freebie. What you should do is you should file a case against her for breach of contract, because if you have the anti-defamation clause um in your divorce contract, then you could really screw her up just by doing a breach of contract clause. And I'm not saying you should vindictively try to get back at her, but if you were the type of person who has finally had enough of this shit, then yeah, if you don't want to deal with the who was the abuser, who wasn't approach, you could just sue her ass for defamation, because you've done everything you could to make her look as sympathetic as possible, even when dealing with her accusations, and she has done nothing but double down hysterically every time this conversation gets brought up. So yeah, take that one as a freebie, Johnny, and make somebody please make a sequel to somebody please make a sequel to The Ninth Gate, please, while I'm in the middle of requesting Johnny Depp for things. If you want to pay me back for that advice, find a way for there to be somehow a sequel to The Ninth Gate.
So, Johnny Depp filed for his appeal, and it was shot down twice. First by the initial judge who ruled on the case, and then by the Higher Court of Appeals in London. And again, this isn't saying that Johnny Depp appealed the case and it failed. They're denying him the right to appeal it at all.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that the judge who made the case in the first place was fairly obviously acting out of some sort of moralistic bias. And the UK legal system is the same legal system that almost threw Count Dankula in prison because he made a joke involving a Nazi pug. So I hate to say I don't really value the opinions of the parties involved in this case, but I don't really value the opinions of the parties involved in this case.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if he appeals and loses, but to not even let him appeal.
Yeah, it's saying you can't appeal because we've declared that this is morally wrong and therefore you shouldn't be allowed to. It's not saying there are no grounds to appeal on. It's saying we're not going to let you because she's the victim because woman, derp. Which just goes to show you that when even one of the richest men on the planet can't get treated fairly by the legal system in this regard, maybe it's a human rights issue, question mark. When even money isn't good enough to prevent you from being abused in this way, then maybe it's a universal problem. Just say.
Uh, Sorry, my tablet with my connection on it keeps freaking reloading for some reason. Says Johnny
It's all
Depp and
right.
his legal team had hoped to overturn the court's ruling with an appeal, but in a statement that was made public on November 25th, Judge Nicol refused to grant Depp the permission to appeal against his judgment. I do not consider that the proposed grounds of appeal have a reasonable prospect of success. It's
Okay,
saying
so
that
it
he
wasn't
doesn't
even that
believe
they're
he'll win the
wrong, or that
appeal, so
they're
why have one?
or that he's being manipulative or something. It's I'm not going to let you appeal because I know myself well enough to know that I'm just going to tell you to fuck off again. And side note, how the hell is the judge who had the original case even allowed to weigh on this? Because normally an appeal is is some kind of the trial that I had previously went wrong, and therefore I'm going to appeal it to try and make it right. So, how does the judge who failed to properly prosecute this get a say on it at all? That is so confusing. It's like walking up to Hannibal Lecter and going, "Well, we know you were accused of being a cannibalistic serial killer, but you get to say whether your past patients get to sue you or not somehow."
It says during the evidence given at the application hearing, Depp's lawyers said that they had not received a fair trial and presented fresh evidence that alleged Amber Heard lied about donating her $7 million divorce settlement to charity. Depp's lawyer, Andrew Caldecott, told the court that Heard's claim about the donation was a calculated and manipulative lie that tipped the scales against Mr. Depp from the very beginning.
Okay, so to be clear, she alleged to have donated $7 million of her um, settlement to charity, which already, by the way, makes her look like an aristocratic toff. But um, now it's coming out that she didn't even do the stupid aristocratic thing of donating a fuck ton of money to charity, and she lied about it for brownie points, basically. So, like, the more I hear about this case, the more I am convinced that I never ever want to be in a room with Amber Heard, and the more I just want to give Johnny Depp a hug and buy him a beer or something.
We do have some good news, though. This happened just last month. Johnny Depp's two defamation lawsuits against his ex wife Amber Heard will not be dismissed, a Virginia judge ruled Tuesday, meaning the case is set to proceed to a trial next year. Now, the following rejections of appeal were for his case in the UK. This is about his case for defamation in the United States.
So yay,
Fairfax County.
okay.
What were you saying?
So yay, our legal system isn't completely foobar yet.
Fairfax County Chief Judge Penny as correct, I don't know how to say his last name, rejected Heard's motion to dismiss the case, Heard's third such motion since Depp filed his lawsuit in March 2019. So she tried to get it dismissed 3 times and it was struck down all the times.
So in other words, when Johnny Depp tries to appeal a thing, it's within a 50-50 shot of being blocked, not on the grounds of being wrong, but on the grounds that we're just not going to hear you because reasons. But when she tries to go and appeal something 3 times, the legal system goes, "We're sorry, the evidence is in his favor. What do you want?" Um, Again, if I'm just looking at the evidence and keeping my own personal feelings about it out of it, we're left with the conclusion that she is a lying bitch and he is the victim in one of the most clear-cut cases I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah. According to what I've heard, the UK justice system is disgustingly woke. Like, I spit at it. It
Uh,
disgusts me so much.
again, it's the legal system. What um what almost threw a Scottish comedian in jail because he wanted to play a prank on his girlfriend, and so taught her little pug dogs to do a Nazi salute when he said "gas the Jews."
I
And,
mean, let me just paint a picture of how ridiculously woke the English legal system is. Their police have rainbow flags on their cars.
yes, the police of vice and virtue that will literally, based on what you say on Twitter, knock on your door and tell you to check your thinking, quote unquote. And that is a thing that actually happened. Um,
Yes, they have called non-crime hate incidents where If you say something um, online that is not a crime, but they still don't like, they will actually come to your house and harass you about it.
Yes, because the purpose of the police is totally to control the thinking of the citizenry. That is totally not some kind of Boschian hellscape of Orwellian nonsense.
All right. Heard tried to get the Virginia lawsuit thrown out, citing the ruling of a London judge last year in a libel lawsuit that filed against the publisher of the Sun tabloid and subsequently lost following a contentious legal showdown in an English courtroom. The London judge concluded that the 2018 article branding Depp a wife beater was not libelous and that the great majority of Heard's claims of domestic abuse could be proved to the civil standard. But
Well,
Virginia's
fuck your
judge,
civil standard is my only response to that. Your civil standard can sod off. If it's not a coherent standard of evidence, then you can fuck off. That's the appropriate response to that.
but Virginia's judge concluded that the two cases were not the same. Heard was not a party in the London lawsuit, although she was a witness for the Sun, and thus her argument for dismissal failed under well-established legal precedents governing when civil cases can be dismissed. Brilliant legal mind they've got there in Virginia.
I I never thought I would see the day when I would be siding with Virginia against London, but here we are.
The defendants claim that refusing to recognize the UK judgment in this case, which set a dangerous precedent, is unfounded. Asgard said in her opinion, if anything, upholding English libel judgments in the United States would create the chilling effect and could create a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, that's
Accordingly,
that's a
this
good
court
point.
is
They're two legal systems for a reason. We're not obliged to give a fuck about your statutes, especially because the standard for what qualifies as libel or hate speech in the UK is much, much broader than in the US. So it's entirely feasible that something can be qualified as hate speech in the UK and not in the US. Because, we have that pesky little thing about freedom of speech enshrined in the fundamental laws of the land instead of just on a whim like it is in the UK. And that's the fundamentally disturbing thing about UK law for me. And I don't hold this against the English people at all or the people of the UK. I love English culture and I want to go to England someday. I do. But the difference between the way that the US views freedom of speech as a universal human right that should be a standard to hold law against, um, and the way that the UK views it, which is essentially as a privilege granted to citizenry by the government. Um, those two different standards are baffling to me. For one thing, human rights are inherent and universal and need to be externally impinged upon in order to be canceled out. They are not granted by an external authority. Fuck right off with that shit. And for another, what does it say about your government that you consider the right to speak out against us is a privilege that we grant you and will revoke at the drop of a hat? UK.
I mean, the people in the UK don't have the right to speech online.
You're cutting out, E. You're roboting really, really badly.
Uh,
I still can't hear you.
uh, uh,
It's a little better, but you're still breaking up really bad. I don't know if it's on my end or if it's on yours. Okay, he's exiting to fix it. I will try to entertain the chat until he comes back in.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Now I can't even hear you.
Um, it says it's picking up my mic. I don't know what's. Uh, shit.
Hang on, let me X out and see if that helps. Okay.
Hello?
Yes. Now we're good.
Yeah, sorry. It must have been my VPN.
Okay. So sorry for the technical difficulties, folks.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll make sure to have my VPN turned off whenever we stream next time.
Mhm. Okay. Back to the spore of madness that is the Johnny Depp Amber Heard fiasco.
Yeah, so Amber Heard tried to dismiss the case in the U.S. 3 times, and the judge smacked them down each time, citing that she couldn't use a ruling in the UK to get them dismissed here in America.
In other words, other countries are a thing for a reason. Don't try to hold one country's laws to another country's standard, you evil bitch. I find it kind of hilarious that she thought that would work. Like, the people of the UK thought that I was in the right. Well, we're not the UK, so fuck off.
Yeah. So it says that the article just goes on to rehash some things we ever know. They broke up in 2016, in which she claimed that he was abusive and threw a phone at her. Police investigated and found that no crime had taken place.
It's it's worth noting also that she has that one instance of quote unquote abuse. One, whereas Johnny Depp has 4 or 5 different examples, and some of them are literally on audio recording. So again, based on the evidence, there may have been one time where Johnny got so pissed off with her that he threw his phone at her, and it didn't even leave a bruise, according to the police that were investigating it. Um, Whereas Amber Heard apparently flies off the handle at the drop of a hat, knows she does, and is entirely intent on doing it again, possibly with fucking frying pans.
All right, so he says in an interview uh, to the Sunday Times in London, this is Johnny Depp, that he's being boycotted by Hollywood, and alluded to the surreal 5 years surrounding the case, and spoke about the film industry fallout of his once formidable career. Heard, meanwhile, has since become a single mother, announcing on Instagram that she quietly welcomed a baby girl Una Page Heard on her own terms earlier this year. A poor child.
Yeah, yeah, like I I'm not usually one to believe that you should call child services because most of the time it's the government trying to be meddling and busybody-ish, but based on her anger issues alone, get this child away from her, especially because it's another woman. It's a female child, which either means that she's going to abuse it and turn it into a victim like she did Johnny, or she's going to manipulate her daughter and turn her daughter into a manipulative bitch just like her. And in either case, I feel it would be abusive. So get this woman away from this child and honestly give the child to Johnny. He seems like a more stable parent.
I don't know if it's Johnny's child or if she conceived the child with somebody else after they broke up, or if the child's adopted. That doesn't
Yeah,
say in the article.
I don't know either. The timing suggests to me that it might be his child. And the fact that she says like I welcomed it on my own terms suggests to me that she's trying to get back at Johnny for like, ha ha, I have your child now and you can't do anything, ha. Um,
I don't know if
but
that's true,
I,
but if it is, talk about evil.
yeah, I might be extrapolating a little bit too much. If it's the child of somebody else, then whoever the father is, they need to become a single father, like now. Um, but if it is Johnny's child, then she's pulling like a I forget the term for a woman who tries to conceive a child intentionally to manipulate a father. But it reminds me a lot of a movie called The Ninth Life of Louis Drax, wherein the mother in that movie had Munchausen syndrome by proxy and abused her son by making people think that he was constantly ill. And then when she got caught on it and locked in a mental institution, she seduced one of the people that was trying the case, and actually at the end it's revealed that she has his child now. Um, so yeah, that's the first place my brain went with that. So I might be extrapolating a little bit too much, but yes, if it is somebody else's child, then that somebody else should have that child. And if it is Johnny Depp's child, then that woman needs to be tried for child endangerment. Now.
Right. Depp recently won another victory in his defamation suit when a New York judge partially granted a petition to determine if Heard donated the entirety of her $7 million divorce settlement to the American Civil Liberties Union and to Children's Hospital Los Angeles as she had pledged. As a result of that ruling last month, the ACLU must release documents that confirmed whether or not Heard followed through on the donation promise, which has become a point of contention in the Virginia case. So
And
now,
again, I'm just struck by the fact that A, she's rich enough to just nonchalantly donate $7 million, and yet she lied about it anyway. Like either just don't lie and say, I got $7 million from the divorce, yay, or actually follow through with the donation so you don't look like complete putz.
maybe it wasn't a matter of she whether or not she could afford it to give it away. Maybe it's a matter of this is the money she got from him. She wouldn't want to give it away.
Yeah, I don't know, but at this point I wouldn't put anything past this woman. Like this woman is just I like Elizabeth Bathory is generally looking at this woman and going, "Well, Jesus, I didn't go that far."
Jesus. I
And
mean,
side note, dear gender studies academics, if you're looking for an example of toxic femininity, may I present Amber Heard?
yeah, prime example. I mean, back when they're releasing promotional photos for Aquaman because she's in the movie Aquaman.
Yeah,
Um,
she was Mira and she was good at that, but
Yeah,
Honestly,
whenever
I
I
can never
first
enjoy that movie ever again because that woman is so bitch.
yeah, whenever I first saw it, I was just like, wow, this girl's really hot. And like now after reading everything about the case and everything she's done, like I wouldn't go near her for $1,000.
Boner killer of the movie, basically. But yeah, that is the fundamental danger because again, because we are human beings and because we are wired to always prioritize the personhood and subjectivity and emotions of women, um, in most cases, because she is a beautiful neotenous woman, we're supposed to be left to think, oh, she's beautiful and she's feminine and delicate. She couldn't possibly do anything wrong. And that is exactly why usually when you see female serial killers in the world, they're very, very beautiful because people come to them thinking, she's beautiful, she could never do anything wrong. And then they get a knife in the fucking neck, metaphorically speaking. Or in this case, their entire life ruined.
Yeah, if people don't think women can be manipulative, I invite them to look up Lucrezia Borgia.
Or again, Elizabeth Bathory, the the woman who was the basis for both the evil queen in the Brothers Grimm fairy tales and partially an inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. A woman so evil that she literally bled virgin girls dry in the hopes that their blood would revitalize her own beauty. Again, if you're looking for an example of toxic femininity, may I present Elizabeth Bathory?
All right, so that's all the articles have to say about the case. Dalton, do you have any thoughts after going through everything?
I just I the more I learn about this case, the more I am convinced that Johnny Depp has the patience of a saint, and someday I want to buy him a beer. And the more I am convinced that I never, ever, ever, ever want to see Amber Heard in anything ever again. And I'm not saying that she can't act, and by no means am I saying that she shouldn't have a career. I'm just saying that unless she makes a career out of playing villains like Cruella DeVille or Cousin Mel, if they ever do a live action version of Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, I can't buy her as a sympathetic person anymore. This has completely soured my ability to enjoy her in anything other than a manipulative villain role. She's very good at that. In fact, she should capitalize on this and play nothing but villains for the rest of her life. She'll be amazing at
I mean,
it.
Amber Heard for ethno, am I right?
I, you're I mean you're not wrong. Um, honestly, given how she looked in Aquaman, I almost would maybe cast her as the Lananchi from Dresden Files. But if we ever get a Dresden Files adaptation and she ends up being the one playing Fnu, then yup.
I mean, for me, it's just the more I hear about this case, the more I really feel for Johnny Depp. I mean, to have to go through a lot of that and then be accused, have your name slandered by the media, losing out on opportunities for work. I mean, it's a living hell. And the fact that he has tried to remain calm and control and fight this out in the courts, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that could drive a man to murder.
Yeah, and what's more is it strikes me how even though she's done all this shit to him, and even though she's slandering him in the press, and even though it's costing him his career, he's still not an asshole to her. He still cares about her interests and her not being harmed or mistreated. And the fact that you can still look at a person who abused you, um, and not um, and not be vindictive towards them, that's a level of heroism that I don't think I would be capable of in his shoes. Again, this has shown me that despite being an actor, despite being a millionaire, despite being quote unquote privileged and everything, Johnny Depp is just a genuinely good guy, and I would want if we ever meet in real life, I'm buying the dude a drink. It is happening because he deserves it after all this shit. Plus, he would probably just generally be a pretty cool person to have a conversation with, aside
Yeah,
from all of this bullshit.
yeah. This has actually made me more wary of toxicity in future relationships. I mean, the stuff that Johnny Depp went through appears to be very extreme and volatile, but there are subtler forms of toxic relationships. However, I don't think that I would have the same problem necessarily that he had. The good Lord has seen fit to give me three highly protective older sisters who would take matters into their own hands if I was ever in a
Oh,
toxic
man,
relationship.
yeah, that's yeah. I think if I were ever in a relationship this toxic, my mother would be a murderer by now. Because yeah, the Lord has seen fit to give me a mother who would sooner see 1,000 people die than me be harmed ever once. So yeah, um, good luck with that. But yes, now that you realize, of course, now that you said the Amber Heard for FU thing, all I can see now is her in my head playing FU. God damn it.
I mean, it
Dresden
fits,
Files
doesn't
is a
it?
completely different topic that hopefully me and E will be doing a stream before too long with just some guy about. But yeah. Side note: if anyone hasn't read Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files and you're a big fantasy fan or you're a fan of basically genre content in general, especially if you're the type of person who hates the modern encroachment of wokeness um into geek stuff and genre fiction, you'll enjoy the Dresden Files, and it's immune basically to any kind of wokeness.
Yet, though, fair warning, it will rip out your heart and crush it on like several occasions.
Oh yeah, you will be a mess, and there are characters that you will want to either punch in the face or run the fuck away from. But it's very good shit. Anyway, we've completely gone off topic, so I guess that's a good place to end it.
Yep. All right, I've been Mr. E.
And I have been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have been the Duality of Man. Do not stick your dick in crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Do not stick your dick in crazy.
Excellent advice. See you.
Cheers, guys.